Hello everyone, Harry Baldock here, editor at Total Telecom, and today I'm joined by two very special guests from data specialist Precisely, Dominic Tomey, Customer Information Management Director, and Lamont Norman, Senior Product Manager. Guys, thank you very much for joining me today.
Well, thanks for the invite. It's great to be here.
Very good to be here. Thank you.
To kick us off, for the sake of those being introduced to the company for the first time, maybe, could you tell us a little bit about Precisely, Dom?
Yeah, absolutely. So Precisely, we're the global leader in data integrity. So ultimately what we do is we help organizations drive accuracy and consistency through their data to help them make data-driven decisions. We operate a kind of across 4 pillars, and those pillars are around helping you integrate your data. So whether you're going from a legacy environment into a more modern environment, we can help you with that. If you're looking to verify that data and kind of get a better, deeper understanding of maybe what problems or issues that data may have, we have solutions that can support you on that. And if you want to learn more about location intelligence and all of the things that may be related to your business data in the context within a location, we can support you with that, as well as being able to provide that kind of context-driven enrichment into your data as well, to again help you bolster the analysis that you're performing, help you provide better decisions going through the business, and ultimately act on qualified insights that are driven by your data. So that's effectively what Precisely do.
Awesome. So you're clearly working with many telcos right now. What kind of key themes are you seeing, especially around data right now?
Yeah, so I think there's many themes at the moment. I think it's all driven by the fact that telcos aren't just telecommunications companies anymore. They're data companies, and that's been confirmed. I've spoken to a load of CTOs and people that are working within these industries, and they're all everything's data driven. Whether it's your business data, whether it's your location data, every decision that you have to make to provide a great service, to avoid things like regulatory fines, to ultimately, grow your business at the pace that it's growing, using the most up-to-date technology that we see in probably any organization. It's all about the data. So driving things like automation through the business to help you really, kind of save things like time to value. How can you make a decision quickly based on the terabytes of information that's being received into your organization, sometimes in real time. So automation is a really big drive that I'm seeing at the moment, but also simplification. I think that most organizations that I'm speaking to at the moment, they're almost going into I say phase 2, but it's probably about phase 10 of kind of data driven requirements for their organization. And, ultimately that simplification needs to come now, because as data has grown, so has the various different tool sets and analysis tools. It can be, we're on big data now, we're moving to cloud. All of these different things that support these data-driven decisions have grown exponentially. So what you need to do is really simplify that, start working with some, clear, concise tools that can be used across the board by everyone, not just technical users, but also your business users as well, so that you can drive those insights further through the organization in a faster way. And I think that's really the key thing that I'm seeing. It's about automation, but also simplification. Condensing the amount of tools that you're using as an organization that are probably repeating themselves all over the place. So that's my feedback. I don't know if you've got anything to add to that, Lamont.
Oh, not much. I think you've really summed it up well, Dom. I think maybe the other thing that I've seen is, as you kind of touched on, is this concept of there's so much data in these telcos, and how can we pull them all together from the various disparate, what they would call silos or different departments, and be able to start leveraging that data that's in one department and another department and pulling them together. And as you said, simplifying that information effectively. It's a real challenge, because a lot of these organizations have, for years and years, either through acquisition or just simply allowing themselves to kind of grow up, as separate entities are trying to come together. And then they're trying to do it in terms of the cloud, working within cloud technology, as you kind of alluded to, going from perhaps big data to cloud data technology, or finding ways to use both is something that I've seen here in the United States, where they're using both of those things, but also being fast and being able to quickly understand the impact of weather, quickly understand the impact of a cultural event, and things like that. The companies that are able to do that more effectively are more profitable. So those are all part of what you're saying, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'd agree with that. Great summary.
So obviously, it sounds like the main thing here is just there's so much data, and I guess with the things like 5G and the IoT, that's only going to increase from here. So what do you guys see as the biggest opportunities for telcos at the moment when it comes to data?
So I think, obviously, from my point of view, opportunity is around that data. It's the ability to make decisions around that data that are going to have the greatest impact on the decisions that you're making for your organization. But also, because you're collecting data, as I said before, telcos, they're no longer just telecommunications companies, they're data companies, and they're holding some of the best data that's available to any sector. So I think monetization is going to be key to the future. That drives opportunity. We've been working with organizations that are using things like subscriber data. And what they've done is they've been really cute, and they've kind of added a bit of context to that subscriber data that then enables them to package that up and sell that on to people that are outside of their industry. So insurers, marketing companies, banks, all different types of organizations that data could be useful for. And I think, they've just scratched the surface with that subscriber thing. I think that there's a whole host of different data sources that telecommunication companies are nurturing and gathering that could be of real use, to organizations that are not within that sector. So monetization is going to be a big thing. And then I touched on it before again in the previous thing. I think, AI. And that goes with the automation side of things, but also AI for your customers as well. So, things like IoT, being able to engage with them, letting them actually self-serve on information that's important to them, rather than maybe having to phone a call center, making things available to people at the touch of a button when they need it. I think is going to be really key for, telcos moving forward. And that's the way the world's going, isn't it? So, Lamont, anything else from you?
I think in terms of the AI, I think you're right on there, Dom. And the only other thing I might add is the data science movement is kind of, really a great opportunity as organizations sit back and learn using data science more about their customers and integrating more closely the techniques and advantages of using data science within their business operations. So I think that might be another place where there's a tremendous opportunity there. And, a lot of these organizations have whole data science teams. And as they're beginning to really become useful, it's definitely become an advantage for some organizations.
Yeah, it sounds like there's so much opportunity really when it comes to data for so many different things. But I guess it also comes with challenges, right? So what do you think would be the biggest concerns for a telco when they're kind of looking at their data right now?
I think, within the context of what me and Lamont are talking about today, the challenge is really around, you've got so much data coming in. How do you make use of that quickly, but also the cost that's associated to that as well. So when we're talking about, for instance, that subscriber thing that I was talking about earlier, one of the organizations that we work with, they get something like 1.4 billion records into their big data environment every 20 minutes. So being able to, not only use that data, how do you process that? How do you process it quickly? So I think, the biggest challenge is going to be around, you've got so much data, what data is going to be important to you, but how do you actually manipulate that so that it works for you? And I think that's something that we help with. Like, Lamont, you're probably better placed to kind of go into a little bit more detail about that. But that's my own view. I think, the the processing of that data is going to be quite a challenge, because there's so many different types and so much of it.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right in terms of the processing of the data, and it's not just the technology. What we've found is, as part of the challenge, is that, you know, for example, if you're getting images of antennas and equipment and things like that, and you've got them all stored in various places, how do you know when, you know, the information on that image changes? Along with, you know, how do you gather feedback from, you know, cell signals dropping or decreasing or diminishing or increasing in various places? And as you kind of talked about, Dom, you know, it's a ton of data, and being able to work with that. One thing I think is definitely a challenge is not only all that data, but also how do you get out what you want from that data? There's a significant failure rate on data from data science teams, because they can't get what they want, and it's not because they don't know the right questions. It's because necessarily that the data may not be in the condition that they can use it effectively. So there are a number of factors, and then there are a variety of techniques that we've uncovered that we think will help organizations be able to get the most out of their location-based data.
Yeah.
I think this leads in quite nicely to my next question, which is really around the kind of emerging technologies that telcos are really using, you know, kind of en masse at the moment, and really trying to integrate in their networks.
Yeah, so I think, you know, obviously cloud seems to be a really big topic at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Move into one of the kind of big four around that. But there's also, you know, from our point of view, you know, I guess the context of this conversation around analytics, you know, kind of what we do around that, and how we, you know, drive better decision making from data. And, you know, we're seeing some really kind of interesting things around that cloud story. So, you know, it could be from like how Databricks are doing some really interesting things around transformation, or it could be, you know, more data analysis side of things and processing side of things like Snowflake, or again, Lamont, you're probably better placed to kind of, you know, talk about the emerging technology side of things. But, you know, whether it could be R, Python, Snowflake, you know, there's so many different types of technologies that can really help back up that story that myself and Lamont have just been talking about, I guess.
Yeah, so there are a number of tools that have been around, as you kind of talked about, Dominic. I mean, R, Python, even, you know, folks are using Java as well. It is kind of, you know, we'll get folks with these skills to do these things, working within a kind of a data science environment, or working within a big data environment. And definitely those things are happening for folks that are the traditional data science type folks, and the you know, kind of coding experts, and the DevOps types of folks. But also there's also the group of people that are less technical, that also want access to all this data. So what we're seeing, and from our experience, has been, you know, as you mentioned, Databricks, Cloudera, some of the Google platforms, and Amazon as well, being able to allow folks that aren't necessarily experts in all these kind of interface technologies to get at this data and making use of it. But what I'm most interested in seeing, and what I see in the telco space, is how do you collect and make sense out of all this data that you're getting, as Dom had indicated, and then be able to use that in real time, or near real time, or transactional situations. And so being able to work within a big data environment to organize this data however you need to organize it. In our case, because we're location intelligence experts in terms of around the locations, how do you organize that efficiently and pull that into an automated form so that you can, in real time, be able to deliver value? So that's a place that we feel like, you know, we see some real challenges, because there's lots of data that just sits out there. I don't know, Dom, if you have any statistics, but there's got to be terabytes of data, raster data, even RF signal data, customer data that's sitting out there that sort of gets used, but doesn't necessarily completely get used, because we have not, or they have not found ways to automate the operational need for that information. You have any other thoughts on that, Dom?
Yeah, and also, I think, Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. But also, I think the other part of that is that more business users are recognizing now that data is going to be the key to them making their own decisions. So once it's been through that analysis, how do you let people self-serve on that? How do you let them actually work with their own data and actually kind of drive context out of that data that's relevant to them, not necessarily something that a data scientist has thought of.
Yep.
Somebody who's actually working in that department has all of that context and knows what that data means to them. I think that's something that's really important.
It is. I completely agree. And that, and then being able to operationalize that or automate that in the sense that the customer wants to figure out where they can get fixed wireless. It's a simple example. Where can I get fixed wireless services? Those kinds of things.
Yeah.
If you want to hear more from Precisely on exactly how telcos can monetize their data, both Dominic and Lamont will be taking part in a session on exactly this topic at this year's Total Telecom Congress. Joined in discussion by independent consultant Pierre Blanchard, BT's David Groff, and Capita's David Homer, the panel takes place at 12:55 on October the 28th. We hope to see you there. Now, back to the Q&A.
So how exactly do you see the digital transformation of location intelligence affecting the telco market? Maybe Lamont, you can speak on this.
Yeah, no, that's one that we've had a tremendous amount of interest in working with our cloud native and big data products. And so what we're seeing is that digital transformation is making use of a lot of Spark technology, where they're actually using Spark to organize the data. Maybe some data proc will be as a possibility too for Google, but for the most part, it's been Spark technology and little EMR as well, and the Amazon platform, where they're taking those millions and millions of rows of data, primarily location-based data. So, with our technology and our data products, we have a collection of address points where we've assigned locations for whole countries, and we have a unique ID associated with those. And then what we do is we take that information into a big data environment. Because we know the locations, then we will use our technology to spatially assign relevant information to all those locations. So for example, staying with the fixed wireless, they may put RF signal information, demographic information, and assign it to all those potential customer locations throughout a whole country. Once they've done that using Spark or EMR, then the next thing that happens is that that data is prepped and ready to go, and the cost of doing that spatial processing has been eliminated. Because then what can happen is a customer could come in to a portal for that particular telecommunications organization, enter in their address, we'll take their address, we'll find that particular location ID associated with the address through a geocoding process, and then we'll just do a simple lookup. And that is a up to 90% reduction in processing time. So it's quite dramatic. It allows all that information to be pulled in, and then of course, a more real-time information about the customer can then be appended, and they can give more accurate decisions on things like fixed wireless and other things. So that's been a big use for us. And so the takeaway that I have for that specific example is the idea of prepping all this location data into a data storage system around a location-based ID, and then having that data ready to be used in a transactional or real-time environment. Dom, do you have any other thoughts?
No, I don't think so. I think you covered that really well. I think, ultimately it's about being able to, in some instances, we're creating these countrywide data sets that enables people to send any type of context to it that's going to be relevant to that location.
Right.
As I say, we've done, in the US, we're doing amazing things around assigning the Precisely ID with all of the plethora of data sets that they're able to use out there. In the UK, we're doing the same thing. We're running that ID consistently through the data sets that are available to us. We're also using really kind of cool stuff like geohashing to be able to kind of create those buckets of information, whether that's on a 100-mile radius or even down to a few feet. We can really start to enable that that easy way to drive
Right.
context through the data that you're doing at the moment. So yeah, that's all I have to say on that.
Well, and I think that goes into one of our biggest differentiators in the marketplace. That coupled with the fact that we have natively installed our technology on a cloud native or a big data environment. So a lot of customers that work with this type of data, they tend to just kind of do a lift and shift. They take the data, they put it in there, and it runs over there. What we've done is we've completely re-architected our technology so that it runs in a distributed manner through the number of nodes. If you're familiar with big data technology and cloud native technology, the infrastructure is ephemeral. It shows up when you need it and it goes away when it doesn't. Well, distributing that information and distributing access to that information does take a bit of thought and a bit of programming and design that take advantage of that. On top of that, what we're able to do is to use this kind of organization method that Dom and I have been talking about. And so we get a very strong efficiency in terms of leveraging and delivering all of that data in real time by pre-building it the way we've done.
Yeah.
Is that what you would say is your kind of your biggest differentiator in the market compared to your competitors?
I think so. I think that is in terms of, if we look at other people or organizations that provide location intelligence solutions or work with GIS data, that what we have combined and leveraged is definitely a huge differentiator. And again, as I see it, I'm kind of reluctant to say 90%, but that's statistically what we've seen in some cases. In many cases, yeah. It's a huge reduction. So, Dom, I don't know if you have any additional thoughts on that. I don't want to over-exaggerate it, So.
No, I don't think you are. Again, when we were talking about that use case earlier around how we're helping telco organization monetize their data, which is kind of going to be the theme of our panel. That is that ability to be able to process millions of records, but also have that kind of common theme running through the data that they can very quickly append different contextual elements to it to drive better data to work with. And ultimately that's what we're about. We are the leaders in data integrity. There's nobody else in the data integrity space. That's a key differentiator on its own. But we've got the data, the ability to, run common themes through that data very easily, but also being able to bring business and location data together with ease.
Yes.
That is then fit for purpose for the business user. Taking this to one side, we can make that available for the business user. Sorry, my daughter's just come to say hello after.
No problem. The final question I really wanted to ask you both is more specifically about return of investment and how you're realizing that with telcos. I wondered if you had any examples you'd want to share with us.
So I think, there's been a couple of things that Lamont has said there. It is about that time to value ultimately. And when you're driving time to value down, that delivers opportunity on its own, whether that's a cost saving through the amount of analysts that you're having to use, whether it's a cost saving from being able to surface information very quickly to your customers. That's an ROI on its own. And that means different things to different organizations. What we're really good at is working with you to define what that ROI could be, so that we sit down with you and kind of understand every kind of element that data needs to go through and what the output is. What decisions being made off of the back of it, and how can we improve that either through the use of our technology or other data sources that can be driven into, give you that extra context. So ultimately, I think there's loads of different ROIs, but it's all generally based around, time to value. How can we drive the time to value of getting that data ready for you to make a decision? And then once you've done that, then that decision, it depends where that decision's going to be, but that decision can, make you millions of pounds because you've driven down time in one area, or it may be very strategic to give you that edge over your competitors. So yeah, the ROI side of things is something that we're always work very closely with organisations on to make sure that they're maximising, the value that they're getting out of the data. Everything else comes afterwards. Anything else from you on Lamont there?
In terms of ROI, I think one of the more practical things that I can bring up immediately is pricing. We have adjusted our pricing. It used to be, you had computers and CPUs and servers, things like that. Well, now we have whole clusters of nodes and tons of different compute options. And it's not a fixed load all the time. And so what we've done is we've adjusted our licensing so that you get a percentage of your compute that you can work with, and we're able to actually look at usage. So that helps a lot in terms of ROI. We've noticed that a lot of folks in the market have started to request this, and we think that we have an advantage there in the way we license the data.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Well, that's all we have time for, I'm afraid. But gentlemen, thanks very much for speaking with me. It's been really interesting.
No, thank you for your time. That's great to share.
You're very welcome.
We'll talk about those things. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thanks a lot.
If you're interested in learning more about Precisely, they're presenting a panel discussion on monetization of subscriber data at Total Telecom Congress later this month. And we, of course, hope to see you all there. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.